Welcome to Unbiased and On the Fence. I'm Shane, and I'm joined today with my special guest. I'm so honored to have you on today. It's Candace Craw Goldman. How are you doing today, Candace?
Hi, Shane. I'm doing well. Happy. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing wonderful. And I've been so excited to have you on here. And just because I stumbled across Dolores Cannon, like, I don't know, a year ago or so, and started reading her books and loving her work. And then I found out you trained with her. And I've got a picture as the thumbnail with you, with Dolores, and I'm a huge fan of hers. And, you know, I was reading her books and had no idea she had passed away. I was so saddened when I found out. And so, yeah, I'm so happy to have you on. And yeah, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. You know, you are not alone in that feeling. It's really interesting how many people, and actually really how many people seem like specifically have discovered Dolores after she died. And the Dolores after 2014 in October when she left is a different Dolores Cannon now. It's sort of like her energy did something, and a whole new slew of people then were able to discover her. And there's a lot of people who felt just exactly like you have, because they felt such a connection with her. And when they have then discovered that she's, has already passed, they feel a real sadness. But you know what? I have to grin about this because Dolores is so accessible. She's even easier for me to talk to now than when she was alive, because when she was alive, she was too busy.
It's so funny while you were just talking about that, I got these chills come over my head and over my shoulders, and I was like, oh my gosh, I feel her presence. It's like she's working behind the scenes since she passed away. And I'm just amazed, you know what I mean?
Yeah, she really has. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you know this or not, but Masaru Emoto, the gentleman, the Japanese guy who did the whole thing with water. Are you familiar with him?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you know he died just within hours of Dolores dying? And now they work together on the other side. And as a matter of fact, so much of my sessions now have water in them because of that, because of their connection, and because of how they're working together, and the things that I've been hearing other practitioners, other people who hear Dolores clearly have been getting information from the other side. As a matter of fact, not long after she died, I had this dream about the both of them. It's a pretty interesting dream where there's this auditorium, and often my Dolores dreams, even before she died, I would have dreams about Dolores in an auditorium. Many of us practitioners would. And I'm in this auditorium, and there's this stage, and the curtain is down, and behind the curtain, I see two people. And I could tell it's two people because they're side by side, and I can actually kind of tell what they're doing. They're actually doing like this, like the can. And I'm in this lucid dream, and I'm like, okay, what's this one about? I had no idea what was going on. And then the curtain kind of starts to rise, but then it kind of dissolves in front, and behind the curtain are Dolores Cannon and Masaru Emoto. They're like, and I'm like, what does this even mean? And they stop dancing, and then they tell me that this was one of the reasons they decided to leave the Earth plane at the same time. What was one of the reasons? Because their exit helped create a space through the veil. Since they exited together, isn't that interesting?
That's so neat.
They decided, because then they immediately began to work with each other. So their exit helped their connection, and their connection on the other side of the veil helps them to break through the veil so that people can hear them. So that also makes Masaru easy to hear and channel as well.
That is so amazing. Yeah, in fact, it's his study with the water that makes me, I bless my water now. I try to inject love and light into it because we're mainly water. And I try to, even if I'm not getting along with people, I try to still love them because a lot of times, if you get like a couple in a bad relationship and they're always, even if they're not arguing, they're sitting there thinking bad things about one another. They're like putting bad stuff in each other's water. And if we're like 2/3 water, that's so detrimental to each other's health. I mean, they're really hurting each other silently,
Yeah. Have to agree with you there. And it affects any environment that you're in, of course, affects that. And some of the additional information I've got that's been very minute about that is even this. So, sometimes we get together and we do chanting, right? New Age people or Buddhists or whatever, and they do like a chanting thing. One of the reasons it's so powerful is because when you chant, you release moisture and vapor into the air, and then it goes into that space and creates, and imbues that space with that energy. So isn't that interesting?
That's amazing. Yeah, I'd never even considered that. Yeah, the vapor and the group, and yeah, that's amazing. So there's so much that we just really don't even know and understand that we're finally beginning to, it's coming. I think the veil's thinning, we're starting to realize a lot of things that have been there all along, but, maybe not the Mandela effect things, which I want to get your take on that too, because that was a huge wake up call for me. And I've noticed that most of the people that are doing like QHHT and just really on the spiritual journey, they see it happening. But others that are sort of stuck in the grind and just busy with work and keeping up with the Kardashians or whatever, it seems like, they either don't see it or don't care to even look into it enough to notice it or whatever. What's your take on that? Are most of the people in your circle of spiritually awake people seeing these changes?
Oh, sure. I've been doing this work now. I'm going on, since 2000 energy work, but the quantum healing work, this is my 11th year, beginning my 11th year with it. And at first, when I first started doing quantum healing, I was kind of alone doing it. And most of the people around me just weren't interested in the things I were, but that has completely shifted gear. I'm rarely around anybody. Even my 88-year-old dad is used to the things I talk about and is fine talking about it and is interested in it. I'm really not around anybody at all who doesn't talk about any of that stuff now. But yes, the Mandela effect it was just huge. So I've heard you talk a little bit before about the Mandela effect, and one of the things that woke me up even before that, or maybe in a sad way, was the crisis actors. Crisis actors, the understanding that there was really crisis actors really hurt my feelings a lot. And even though I thought I was already awake, when I saw that, when I really realized the programming along that, that was tough for me. But the Mandela effect, I noticed it a long time ago, and the thing about it was that it was the classic Berenstain Bears. And when I read it and saw it, the way that it worked for me was my children were in 1st and 2nd grade when the Berenstain Bears were very, very popular. And I was reading them, the Berenstain Bears books at home. And every time I would read the Berenstain Bears, because mine was spelled with an I and an E and not an A and an I would sometimes fall over my pronunciation, and sometimes I called them the Berenstain Bears, and sometimes I called them Berenstein Bears. And I remember meaning to ask my daughter's 2nd grade teacher about that, thinking they probably read that book in class, and which way did she pronounce the name. And I had to remember, it was one of those things I kept meaning to ask, and then I finally asked, and she said, oh yes, we actually use that name in the class to help people remember how to pronounce, the Berenstain Bears. And so this vivid memories of that. And then when I saw that it was now spelled with an A and an I just couldn't believe it. And then when I went down into the basement of my house where I still had the books, And I'm uncovering these books, and I pull up a book that I've read 500 times, and the book had changed. Whoa. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Knocked me over with a feather. And then, but it's been happening, right? It's not like it's just happened. So it's been happening. And one of the ones that I saw basically happen right before my eyes almost was the Bragg's seasoning, you know, Bragg's. And I used to just laugh about how, look, you know, even this bottle brags about itself, I would say, right? It's such a Bragg's, you know, you remember Bragg's. And then I went and got a half empty bottle out of my cabinet, and now it says Bragg.
That's so trippy, isn't it? It's the same way. It's the same way with what's the other one? Depends. People would make all sorts of jokes, you know. Well, it depends, and now it's depend. It totally ruins all the jokes you've heard over the years. I didn't
even know that one, but you're right. Oh my God, another one.
Yeah, there's so many. And I think the trippiest one for a lot of people is just to see the Bible, their text, because, you know, people have these old Bibles that's been in their family for years, and they look and the print has changed. I mean, sometimes it's highlighted, the lion and the lamb, and now it says the wolf shall dwell with the lamb or whatever. And it's like, what the heck? How does the print change?
Yeah, you know, I think that's the part that I find interesting, because of course I did what probably a lot of people did. I went on the internet and I looked around, and a lot of people just attribute it to memory. But, you know, of course, if a timeline changes, well, then it changes down the road in retrospect. So then all of those things change. But there's those interesting anomalies where people find a Berenstain Bear made with an E and an I, you know, the ones that slip through the cracks. I think those are interesting ones.
Yeah, the ones probably that trip me out the most are like when you see the Rodin's Thinker statue, and there's one with like the softball team with 18 softball girls there, and they all got their mimicking it, looking, because, you know, of course they're all going to look up at it and they're going to mimic it, yet the statue's changed. It's like, what the heck?
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah. Just crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. I actually had somebody. It was interesting because I knew that you were interested in the Mandela effect, and it was either, I think it was just this morning, or maybe it was yesterday. No, it was just this morning. I got a text from a colleague of mine who, she said, Candace, I want to tell you about this Mandela effect that I just saw. It was a personal one in her life. She said, because you were the one who first told me about Mandela effect. And here was her story. So she's a colleague. She's a quantum healer. She's also a massage therapist. Now get this. So she's had this one client who's been her massage client for 25 years. And he comes in and she's doing a massage, and she sees on his shoulder, he's got this tattoo. And, you know, when you're a massage therapist, you know tattoos, and you know new tattoos, and you know other tattoos. And she's looking at this tattoo. She didn't even mention what it was, but it was on the shoulder. And she just sort of gently, she's having kind of internal freak out. You know, she's been rubbing the same guy's shoulder for 25 years. And she says, you know, hey, so-and-so, when, you know, did you ever tell me, when did you get that tattoo? And he's like, I've had that tattoo for more than 20 years. Never been there before. Last time she'd given him a massage every month for 25 years. And suddenly he's got a tattoo that she's never seen before. Now that's a personal Mandela effect that could really make you wonder about how all this works, huh?
Oh yeah, that's so trippy. In fact, Angela, who was on the program talking about her son Christopher's messages from the other side, I don't know if you caught that program, but she's a massage therapist, and the same thing happened. I think that with her, the tattoo changed to a different design or something along those lines, but still trippy.
That is trippy.
That is so wild. So let's get into the quantum healing, because I think this is so cool that you know, Dolores Cannon started the whole QHHT thing, but and you know, I enjoyed her book. She was talking about how she would learn all these different methods over the years and sort of drop what she doesn't need and learn better ways of doing things. And her method sort of evolved into its own thing because of her finding out what works, using her own skills and things like that. And But one of the things they didn't do was distance hypnosis, which I found interesting because with what you're doing now, you guys can do it at a distance, right? Like through Skype or through Zoom or one of these chatting services like we're using now even. And, that is so cool because sometimes people are in remote locations and they can't do that. So tell me about Beyond Quantum Healing. Because it's sort of a decentralized, I like it because it's like this new wave of decentralized things we're seeing, like where there's really not a leader. I mean, of course, there's the directory in one place, but everyone's sort of using their own skills and bringing their own things to the table. And it makes for a better, I think anyway, practice.
Yeah, I do too. Well, it might be helpful to go back and review a little bit about Dolores's history. So I'm intimately, involved and understand all of that with all the work I've done with her until she passed. But so Dolores, she started working with her husband. So back in even like the late 60s, early 70s, it was actually him that was doing the work. He was the one who had the interest in hypnosis. Dolores's job was to carry around the great big reel-to-reel tape recorder. Right? I mean, that really was, obviously she was the one in the end who took it to the world, but he was the one who started it. And they developed it, and they kind of, came into it by accident, but I think it was the year 1998, Dolores came up with what she decided was her method. And she called it, for the longest time, Dolores Cannon's method of past life regression. As a matter of fact, when I took the class way back in 2008, that's what it was called. It was not called QHHT. That happened several years later. But so she started the method. She put it together in 1998. She started teaching it in 2002. And even though she internally honed all of this, she didn't change really anything about her steps and her scripts until she died in 2014. So she kind of was like, here it is. This is the way it works. But she called it forgiving. She says it's a very forgiving method, but she was pretty adamant about the steps. But Dolores was also a little bit of a technophobe. She didn't really use computers a lot. She was, she used cassette tapes until cassette tapes weren't even manufactured anymore. When she first got one of these and she came in, she was like, look, everyone, I had to get one of these. So the thing about Dolores, bless her heart, she was afraid of technology, and she was, a human. She was a human, right? So people like you, people like me, especially people younger than us, are so comfortable with this technology that of course we're going to break new ground. Of course we're going to take this elsewhere. And it can be done that way. And for some people, it's the only way it can be done. I've got stories of doing this kind of work, this beyond quantum healing work, where people are in hospitals. They're not going to be able to go in person to have a session. They can't even go home. What, we're going to tell them they can't have a session because of some sort of silly rule? I don't think so. I just don't think so. And there's some other things that have changed. And what I just quite personally have decided is I have a lot to offer that has come from a lot of other places. And I feel very comfortable in bringing in all of my skills to every session. And every other quantum healer has skills, whether from life or from learning them from another teacher, and they should be able to access those during a session as well. And that's kind of the whole idea of Beyond Quantum Healing is, wow, how about just bring all of your gifts and skills to assist a client and not just one, because we're not clones and clients aren't made out of the same cookie cutter mold, and it just works better that way. So yeah, a lot of freedom with BQH, and no rules, and nobody trying to control it. I'm sure not trying to control it. I am teaching it. I'm teaching my version of it, but there are other people out there who are practicing versions that they call BQH, and I'm certainly not going to go around and tell them that they can or that they can't, or that they need to change anything that they're doing. So it's just a completely different way of looking at how to, support something as wonderful as this framework without having to clamp on it, control it, or, make up a bunch of rules.
That's good. So it's more like you provide a framework or a basis, and then people are allowed to sort of bring their own skills or gifts to the table and make them work along with the foundation of how the practice works then.
That's the way I've looked at it, and that's the way I've created the class. I've created the class with newbies in mind, with absolute newbies in mind as well, which is, how about we talk about a lot of things in BQH that I never really learned directly in a class from really anybody, not even really Dolores. Dolores was very practical. She was a very practically minded woman, even though she was so, woo-woo. But some of the things and some of the focus, for example, that BQH has that it was never a focus of QHHT, in all of the classes I was in and helped assist and et cetera, was the practitioner brings so much into these sessions, not because of mental skills or letters behind their names, licenses or degrees, none of that. What they bring, their energy, their frequency, and their belief systems, those things absolutely affect what happens in a session, because I've started to talk about BQH as being this thing that's kind of like a chemistry experiment. So the client is one element, the practitioner is another element, and you combine those two elements. And just like in chemistry, you can have something volatile when you combine elements. You can have things that maybe don't combine as with as much action, and maybe you even need a catalyst of some kind. I mean, it really is like a chemistry. And you're not sure exactly how it's going to go, but I guarantee you that whenever you have a session and then have a session maybe with somebody else, it's going to be different because of the chemistry. It's like a chemistry or a math equation. The energy of the practitioner, the energy of the client, but not only that too, the belief system. And let me tell you how I think, or how it was shown to me how that worked. Sorry, I've been talking all day. I had a session this morning. Let me have a little drink. So one of the ways this became very apparent to me was in my very first class with Dolores. There was this man there, a lovely man, and he was a licensed hypnotherapist who had decades of experience under his belt. Very nice man. We got along very well. We just kind of hit it off. And we met up the next year when Dolores was having her then additional class. And we went out to lunch, and he brought his wife. It was just a nice fella. And so the three of us were talking, and he says, Candace, he says, I'm thinking I might even just give this up, because I don't see anything happening in these sessions. I was floored, absolutely floored that this man was telling me this, because I'd been practicing for that whole year and I'd had amazing things happen. And of course, this guy had, like I said, all those letters behind his name and all these licenses, and way a lot more experience than I did. And I just thought if there was a difference between us, surely he would have had, maybe more things happen in his session. But I found out this was the energy that fella brought to his sessions. He kind of brought this energy of, I'm not sure about this stuff. I'm kind of skeptical. Prove it to me. I'm going to go through these steps. You just show me some of this magic stuff that happens right here. I don't think he even really realized he was bringing that energy, that skeptical, doubtful belief system thing, but he was going into it with that. And I think that messed up his chemistry experiment. And that's why he didn't see those things happen in his session. But that's my thinking of it. So as I'm now instructing BQH, I'm talking to the people who are showing up saying, you can be a hypnotherapist, great. Those skills absolutely will help you, as long as you don't box yourself in too much. But you can be brand new, and as long as you've got that open heart and an absolute belief in the magic of quantum healing, that's what you need. Those are the important ingredients.
I think it's important to realize how much consciousness affects things and our intentions affect things, because, you know, and I even pointed out a video, I have it in the description of Dean Radin, where he's actually scientifically proven how, and even David Wilcock in his books prove how, like, plants can sense you're going to harm them and all of this stuff that's really going on. And people don't realize how much our intentions are going out there and affecting things. And they don't even seem to be bound by time. He was showing how, you know, just even into the future and into the past, you can detect certain things, and all these things that are connected sort of to the right brain or intuition. And yeah, I can definitely see how if he went with this left brain mentality into the whole thing and just didn't connect spiritually, that it would totally affect the results. Yeah.
Yeah. You remind me of my husband when we first moved out here to rural Kansas. We were clearing some paths in the woods, and he came in one day and he was just like beaten up, man. I mean, he just like had, you know, from branches and stuff like that. And I looked at him, I said, man, I said, you look like you've been in a fight. And he says, well, I've just been clearing, you know, trees in the woods and, you know, chopping down some of these branches and some of the, and I said, well, have you been asking permission? Have you like tried to talk to the trees? I'll never forget it. He kind of went, no. I said, why don't you try that? Changed everything. May I please have this branch? Would that be okay with you? Okay, here we go. Okay, thank you.
That's so funny. Yeah. And, you know, I've heard that even, you know, because there's a lot of vegetarians that, you know, think really bad about eating meat and stuff. And I understand that. But what they don't realize is studies have shown that even plants will cower in fear and put off this energy when they're about to be eaten. But when you bless them and thank them for their nourishment, it seems to be they're okay with their with being used as food or whatever in nourishment. And it's wild, you know, but it's scientifically proven.
It is. You know, I actually, I got into all this work. When I got into all this work, I was an artist and a photographer. So my background, even though I did Reiki and some of those kinds of energy work things for a while, kind of just as a self-healing family thing before I got into this work in a bigger way with quantum healing. But I was an artist and photographer. And when I was getting my master's degree in painting, I was doing some assemblage work, which assemblage basically means I glued a bunch of stuff on my paintings, right? And one of the things that I did my assemblage with was sticks and rocks and stones. I was very, very connected to the planet. I was interested in using natural elements. And one day I was in the studio and I was using a masonry bit to drill through a river rock, kind of a, river rock about that size. And it took a long time to get through this rock. I wanted a hole through it. I was going to kind of like a very large pendant. I wanted to put a rope through it and hang it on my painting. And I'm drilling from this side and I'm drilling from this side. And it took me a while and I'm drilling. And when I finally made the hole through the stone, my life really, frankly, changed. I mean, I'm sitting there just like dust in the studio and all that. And I'm looking down at this hole in this rock, thinking a little bit like about the trees or, the people or any of the plants or the animals or anybody having a sense of something that just happened to, this thing. It was an inanimate object, but I put this hole through it and suddenly I'm looking at this stone like going, oh my gosh, now how do you feel about that I put this hole through you? And it changed everything. Actually, the whole painting changed. I called the painting the stone's soul. And, I didn't know it at the time, but my artwork then started moving me to where I am right now, was to understand about consciousness in absolutely everything, even in a rock. And you can't believe how many people come to have quantum healing sessions who are rocks. Lots and lots of rocks out there.
That's so funny. Yeah, I heard about that with the whole law of one thing, and it was like we're third density, and it's like rocks and elements and things are first density. And I was like, I hadn't really thought of that, and I'm thinking, wow, it's like everything's alive, and it really does seem like that. It seemed like you watch the grass. Now that I really pay attention, I'm walking in nature or in the backyard and meditating, and you see all the little blades of grass waving in the wind, and it's like everything seems so alive. Yeah, the trees are all like waving with their leaves, and it's like life's so different than it was a year ago. I just see everything as being alive, and you just can feel the love once you pay attention to it. It's like they're like, hey, you're paying attention to me, and it's a reciprocal. It really is reciprocal, and anybody that's skeptical, try it. I mean, because you can feel the love get returned. And I know it sounds like the whole tree hugger thing or whatever, but you really do feel the love back from, and even I'm like looking at my grass, I'm like, I'm gonna have to mow my grass soon. And I'm like, all right, I'm gonna have to give my love out to it before I mow it or whatever, because I gotta mow it, but I hate to.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it brings a whole new idea about like children and their toys, right? And special stuffed animals and that, but then, Winnie the Pooh, I mean, the whole thing, really, Pinocchio, all of that. The reason that these are stories, in our collective minds and collective history. And it's absolutely like that. I remember reading another story as a kid about, it was an ancient African story about elements in a kitchen. It was called clay pot and wood stove or something like that. And they all had this conversation, these kitchen elements had a conversation, just fascinated by the fact that they had these personalities. And then we tend to, as children, we set that aside. Then we grow up and we tell ourselves not to do that anymore. And what we do really by doing that is we just cut ourselves off from power and magic and opportunity to love life, even more. And we do that to fit in, and we do that because we're kind of programmed by those around us to help us fit in, and not always for nefarious reasons, not always for negative, because they really want us to fit in, because fitting in makes you happier, or so it seems, right? Until we can't fit in any longer into whatever box somebody wants to put us in. And then we have to bust out of the box and just find where we fit in a little better.
That's why I think people that are into the arts are so much more blessed, because it allows them to sort of go back to that childlike imagination and do a painting or a piece of art like you were just talking about, or a play, or write a story. It just engages that whole right part of our brain, that feminine, creative part of us that, we're told to, stop dreaming, stop daydreaming, get to work. And, we're always pushed to the left. Even school, it's like all of the subjects are pretty much left brain, except for like art and music. So it's like we're constantly getting pushed to the left. And that was one of the messages I got in the rodents thinker statue change, was I was being shown how we've gone wrong as a society, that we're not thinking with the third eye anymore. We're sort of we got our hand, well, now it's sucking on the knuckles, but besides the point, he shifted to his complete left side. And we've moved to the left, where we're more concerned with ourselves, the ego and selfishness, and not about the whole. And so, yeah, that's been a really huge thing with this whole Mandela effect and the messages I found in it, with T's and logos getting chopped off, or, the American Gothic painting where the feminine on the right is now looking to the left. And all of these were telling me the same thing. And once I saw the intelligence and the changes and the messages I was receiving, and it was totally right about what's happened to our society and where we've gone wrong, I was just blown away. That's why I can't see it as a negative thing anymore. I know a lot of people think, oh, it's Satan doing it or something evil, but it's for me, I've been gathering like with all these other loving people, and it's been wonderful. It's been the best experience of my life now that I've looked at it in a positive way.
Yeah, yeah. Isn't it interesting how art and music, it's almost always marginalized. It's never something that you spend hours and hours a day. You don't have math for 15 minutes every third Thursday like you do your music session, or, art is just, and it's the same with recess. Do you remember, I mean, you're a lot younger than I am, but, we used to feel like we were chained to our desks, and then we'd go out for recess because you just had to. If they didn't give you a little bit, of ways to express yourself physically, or to blow off steam, or to be creative, we would completely revolt. But this idea of being in these regimented, just those regimented rows and boxes that you're in school, it's just it gets you ready for your cubicle.
That's so true.
So you could just, stay in your seat that's a square box, and stay in this square box role, so you can go into this square box life. And there's some of the theater people and the art people like me who early on go, oh my God, I don't think I can do that. And but it's funny, because even getting in those roles, as much as they are, they have their boxes too. There's boxes everywhere. As a matter of fact, you pay attention, and you get in this world, this new age or metaphysical world, there are just as many boxes in this world created as in any other part of society. They're just sometimes a little more cleverly constructed, or they're denied. No, this isn't a box. Just don't pay attention to those four walls and those corners in this confined space. That's not a box. This is, I don't know. This is, this is history, or this is respect, or this is, I don't even know what. But believe you me, it's just a box with another name.
And that's sort of the visualization I got when I named the channel. I got this picture of these cubicles that were like a grid of cubicles, and they were all world views. And no one could see anybody else's cubicle because they were down in their own. Yeah. And it was like when you rose above and you look down, it's like everybody had families they loved and cared about, and everyone was seeing things like they were right from their point of view. But I got this vision of sort of rising above to the top and just coming out of all of those, because I saw it as just a way that, we've been divided from one another, just reasons to separate. And it just gets in the way of unity. So even, I've been called like New Age and stuff. I've realized a lot of people that if you don't agree with their beliefs or something, they just throw that title on you. They say, well, you're just New Age or whatever. I'm like, I'm not in any group at all. I'm a human. That's about it. You know what I mean? And I'm a spiritual being having a human experience. And, I'm not going to not love somebody or not consider anyone else just because of their race or religion or where they're from on the planet. I mean, it's so ridiculous, because it's like from the time we're born, we learn separation. Well, this is a boy, this is a girl, and it's like, that's what our whole life is about. It's about dividing and dividing and dividing. And I saw it that way. And then I totally saw the teachings of Jesus as being the opposite of that, become like a child again, where, if a child comes across a different race, they're going to be like in wonder. They're like, oh, wow, I've never, and it dawned on me, because my wife was talking about her first experience. She grew up in a white neighborhood, and she came across a black person. She was in awe. She's like, oh my gosh, I've never seen a black person before. And it wasn't a hatred thing. It was like cool. It was like, another person that she wanted to get to know. And it was like, it made me cry to even think about how children don't have that, where it's like, oh, they're different. Let's stay away from them. Let's keep them over there. It's like, they were like, hey, a new type of person. Let's go meet them and learn about them. And it was like, that's the world I imagine,
Yeah. Yeah. Very, very good too. Yeah. And a lot of people, when I was thinking when you were beginning to talk about that, if there are people with different belief systems, that's fine. But the problem is when people think that they know everything or have it all figured out. And when I get that from anybody, and I don't care if they're a teacher or if they're newly awakened or whatever, but if they start coming down with, look, this is the way things are, I know this is, my bells and lights start going off all the time. It's like, you can know from what experience you have right then and right now and whatever, but to sort of project your knowing and ways of being onto others, you know, that happens in this world, even in the spiritual world, as much as it does anywhere else. And you really got to watch out for that.
I agree. Yeah, always staying open-minded, and I don't ever consider myself a teacher. I'm going to always be a student because there's always going to be more to learn. And as soon as you figure, quote unquote, figure it all out, then you've shut yourself off to learning anything, because how can you learn if you know it all already, right?
Right. And the best teachers actually know this. You know, long before I was ever teaching Beyond Quantum Healing or assisting Dolores with QHHT, I was an art teacher. And one of the things about teaching art that I loved so much, and I realized it really quickly, as I was assisting others, I learned so much from them. As a matter of fact, I learned so much sometimes from the absolute beginners who would show up. They would either say something or draw something or do something, and I would be in awe of them. And I feel the same way with BQH, which is why I really tailored it to accept everyone, but especially those who really have never gone into this at all and maybe have some sort of yearning and maybe feel like they need to already know a bunch of galactic history or a whole bunch of different energy modalities or all these different terms of stuff. And I'm just like, oh, please, no. What's important is right here, you know, and if you can figure this out and with a little bit of a framework, then you just bring your own self. And you know this, I know, Shane, that you've met other people who are starting to awaken, and some of them who they're just like, you know, their eyes are really big and they're seeing stuff and they're so excited about it. That's a beautiful, wonderful energy, and it's happening more and more on the planet. And some of those people who want to do something, even if they still have a 9-to-5 job at a factory or a grocery store, that's fine, but they can learn how to sit and listen well to a friend. They can learn a bit of energy healing, easy Reiki technique, or BQH, or anything like that. If they want to take steps into this world, this hierarchy thing is old news, and I don't want any part of it.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And in fact, man, when you guys did the regression, you and Allison Co, was it last Sunday, the Sunday before last? It was so,
you watched it.
It was so amazing, and I couldn't believe how you wrote that, right?
I did, yes, and it was doing this kind of writing in a more lyrical, poetic style that was one of the forerunners to me creating BQH. So very much so, yes, that was my script, but Allison's absolutely drop-dead gorgeous voice, and
I know, she is transformed.
She's just something, isn't she? I love her.
You guys are an awesome team. When you wrote that and then she started reading it, and it was just it was amazing. You guys did a great job working together on that. I was blown away. And you know, this was one of the worries when I heard about the distance thing. I'm like, what if somebody slips into that, what do you call that, deep state I can't ever pronounce it.
Well, first off, somnambulism is fairly rare. Well, you know, boy, you know, I could speak from now till a week from Tuesday on this subject, but let's see if we can keep me compact here. So somnambulism means basically sleepwalking, and most natural somnambulists, and they aren't every other person on the street. Believe me, this is a fairly rare natural ability. They just tend to go very, very deep. And the thing about is somnambulists, right? They're going to go that deep every night when they go to sleep. You know, this isn't some sort of magic cloak that a quantum healer can imbue on somebody. And there's always safety things that you can put into place, right? And so there's a couple of different ways of looking at this. So number one, quantum healers all over the planet know that the higher self only brings to you and your session things that are valid and that are appropriate and available for you to learn and experience that day, right? We say it over and over again. We've been saying it for years and years and years. The only valid experience is what's going to happen here. So why does changing the technology change that directive? I say it doesn't. Meaning let's say somebody does go very deep. Let's say they come to my studio. Maybe they get very, very extremely deep and in a different state in my studio right here behind the screen than they might if I did it this way or using Zoom or whatever. Because if you're being taken care of by your higher self, well, then you're being taken care of by your higher self, whether it's using a little technology or not, right? And in general, what are some of the concerns? Well, look, they're valid concerns. What are some of the concerns? Well, that they might fall off their piece of furniture. Well, you know what? Some people do these quantum healing sessions. I've never done it because I don't think it's very comfortable, but some people do these on massage tables. Massage tables can be narrow and sort of iffy, you know, and I don't care if you're there or not. Somebody might go off a table if they're, you know, gesticulating or maybe getting a lot of healing or whatever. So, you know, I don't really see the big difference between the two, not really. And one of the biggest, you know, things that could happen if you go really, really deep is you go to sleep. So you go to sleep. How dangerous is that? And yes, 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 for those hypnotists and hypnotherapists who are out there, of course, there's all kinds of really crummy things somebody who doesn't know what they're doing could possibly do or say or suggest that can, let's just say, not be for the best for the client. But that can happen whether it's an interface like this or one that's face-to-face. That neither one of those things are going to make any difference. And there's also this thing with hypnosis that you know, a person who's taken some training in it will learn is you offer and you talk about suggestions about how things are going to go beforehand, right? And so you talk to the person about how if the technology gets disconnected, it won't really matter. We'll just reconnect or you'll just wake up. I mean, there are things you can put into place besides of having even somebody there. You can have a person right there or in the next room. What's the difference?
Right, someone to call, a phone number or something. But the thing that I was going to bring up was that when I did it, when I was watching the video, I did it that Monday. And I was watching the video and I didn't realize that it was actually going to be a session. So I'm like sitting at my computer. And then when it started, I'm like, oh, wow, this is so cool. But I was talking to Jose and I'm like, hey, you got to check this video out. I'm about to do it or whatever. But she had already started and I'm listening to her. And she's talking about the beach and all of this. And I'm just sort of listening in the background. And I've always been this type of person that, you know, I have to have somebody talk to me on long trips because I get the highway hypnosis thing going on. And I've ran into the back of somebody before on the highway and like I saw the whole thing happen.
You shouldn't do this work while driving.
Right. Excuse me. But yeah, it's like, it's always been a thing with me where I slip into this deep state. Even if I'm really thinking about something, I can slip into it. So I remembered the whole beginning part of what she said. And then I rewound it and I went and lay down, put my headphones on. And after the end of it, I'm like, she never did the beach part again. I skipped over. I got so deep from her voice that I skipped over a big section of what she did that I never remembered her saying it again. So yeah, I just wanted to just back up what you were saying. It was almost like more like I was asleep and woke up again. Yeah. So it's not like, you know, I was gone and I never came back or anything. So yeah, I don't think there's the big risk that a lot of people think is, I think like you're saying, you'll just fall asleep and then wake up. And at least you're not driving. And you guys said, don't drive and do this. So.
Yeah, don't drive. Don't drive and do this. You know, it's terrible. When I you know, years ago though, when I was first learning from Dolores, I would listen to her induction because I was mimicking her. And I listened to her induction while I was driving a tractor and mowing in the backyard. I was okay though. I've always had and don't try this at home, young children's out there anyway. But the reason is, I think it's actually, quite frankly, Shane, one of the reasons why I think I've been fairly successful doing this work, because I have even though I'm a very right-brained, rebel artist person, I also have a very, very loud left brain side. It's very analytical. As a matter of fact, it laughs at me a lot. Even though I've been doing this work for, full time for 11 years, there are still times where my little analyzer, my little left brain will just lay down on the floor and pee its pants laughing so hard at what I'm doing. But I've learned to sort of take that voice and go, you know what? We're just not going to worry about your thinking about that right now, because what I found is if I just kind of pat this little analyzing voice on the head and go with the things that seem to be kind of outrageously magical, that sometimes that magic just manifests, and sometimes it just manifests right before my eyes. I mean, even my session this morning, this beautiful woman, and it was on Zoom, and we were going through this healing portion of the session, and I'm looking at her, and I actually am seeing like light sparkles come up off of her like this during the session. And these are the kind of things that I didn't see right away doing this work, but the more and more I opened myself up to it and remembered some of that childlike fascination with things like, magic, which, all magic is science that we haven't figured out yet, is the way I've looked at it. I mean, take a cell phone back in the caveman days and they'll call that magic, and we'll just laugh because that's not really magic. We know how that works. And so, but still, the idea and the dictate about believing in magic will help magic happen in your sessions. And I've seen the most amazing things happen right here in this room, things that just are hard to believe right before your eyes.
That is so amazing. Yeah, I wanted to take the course. So I mean, you guys, you're starting. Are you starting a class? What's going on with? I do have the link below, but I saw the registration closed in March. Is it going to reopen? Or?
What I did was, so I did something kind of funny. Of course, kind of. I decided to do something, of course, that most people don't do. Of course. I decided to do something completely different, not the way that most people do things, of course. And so that does make it a little confusing. So what did I do? Well, it was really interesting. And I'm happy to tell you exactly even how it worked. I had other people tell me, you should teach your own course. So I was like, I'm fine with Dolores' method. I don't want to teach anything else. I mean, for years they were telling me, I'm like, I wasn't focused on that. I was fine in assisting people with that method, and I had some psychics even say, oh no, I see you teaching a class. And I'm thinking, no, I'm not going to do that. Well, they were right. And so what actually happened was, first off, I was seeing how we just needed to bring more expansion and more creativity and we just needed to bust open some of the boundaries that were around that. I just saw that very clearly. But I actually read something, and I read something on social media. And that day, I decided to create the BQH beta class and start teaching it like the next day with no plans. With no plans, no syllabus, no nothing. And the comment that I read was on Facebook, and it was of this beautiful woman who said, I just wish $1,000 would drop out of the sky so that I could take the QHHT course. I don't even know who this person was. I should have written down her name because I should go find her and thank her. It was like everything, it was like an explosion happened right in front of me. And I said, that's it. I'm going to teach. And I'm going to teach something completely different. This isn't a repackaged QHHT. Believe me, it is something completely different. All of the rules that are in QHHT, pretty much BQH says, yeah, upside down from that. And I started teaching right away. So what I did was I called it beta, and I just offered it mostly to the community. But then I basically said, hey, people, while I start practicing teaching, how about come and join me while it's like open mic night, right? I was like going to open mic night and starting without having a job or a gig or anything like that, like if I was, a performer of some kind. And I did that for 2.5 months. And then one day I went, okay, done. I'm ready to produce the finished course. And I'm halfway done with that. The finished course is distilled. It is easy to follow. It's on a proper teaching platform. It has segmented videos, a whole syllabus, downloaded documents. But all those other webinars that I did, those live things, those hours and hours of them, about 30 hours, I think, those are all available too on our forum. So what I'm doing now is streamlining the course. I am teaching the course. Don't know when it's going to be up. I really love it to be up as soon as I get back. I'm traveling to Europe to give some workshops and lectures and do a symposium and an event with other quantum healers in Greece, actually.
Oh, wow, that's so cool.
Yeah, I'll be happy to tell you about that too, but I'm leaving 2 weeks. Oh my God, it's Thursday, right? I'm leaving 2 weeks from tomorrow. So there's no way I can get it done in the next 2 weeks because I'm about halfway done. But as soon as I get back, I'm going to finish it up and I'm going to put it online, and the price is going to be, so much less than what so many of these other courses are out there. It's going to be very affordable. I'm not going to say exactly what it is yet because I'm still working that out, but much, 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 much less, promise. And it'll be take it as you can or want or fits in with you and your schedule. And then, of course, our community is a support system afterwards, and in a way where you come ask questions, compare notes with other quantum healers, and take it from there. And there's been a tremendous response. Way more people signed up and applied to be in the beta course than I really even had room for or could handle. And I finally just had to say, okay, stop. And now I'm going to make the proper course out of it. So I know that's weird. I know it's not the way most people do things, but that's par for the course for me. And the proper class, the public class is coming up here in early summer. And, if you ask me back on your show, maybe sometime at that point, I'd be happy to talk to you in more detail about it.
That'd be perfect. Yeah, because when I heard that the course was $1,000, I felt crushed. I'm like, I'll never have $1,000 to do this, But I think it's something that could be helpful for, anybody to learn how to do. Even if it's not going to be your main gig. I think Yeah,
and I'm thinking more along. I'm not going to say numbers, but more along the lines of a really good grocery store trip price, right? That's what this is going to be. It's not going to be $1,000. No way. It's going to be way down there because I'm interested. I've always been interested in assisting others. My focus has been assisting other quantum healers for more than a decade. But I'm happy. People want to be when they start waking up, they start seeing, wow, maybe it isn't about collecting all of these toys and getting all of this stuff that's all just surrounded by me. People start understanding that maybe part of their reason for being is to be of service to others. So, my whole community is about people who want to do that, be of service to others. So our community isn't for people who are individuals looking for healing. We are for practitioners or people who are learning to be practitioners, but even beginning ones, we are for you. For sure. And then from there, of course, when you step into that world of being service to others, you find healing yourself.
Yeah, we have people asking about your European trip because we do have viewers from over there. So do you have a place that has your schedule lined out for people?
Sure. Yeah. So let's see. I need to. I need to get a little better about that, don't I? But so here's what I'm doing. So there's a place in London. It's actually called the College for Psychic Studies. I don't know if you've heard about it before, but it is a very famous place. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was a president of the Psychic Society that was in this house and part of this whole thing. And what they've done is expanded and expanded and expanded. And of course, my beautiful teacher, Dolores Cannon, and many, many, many other amazing mediums, spiritualists, energy workers, teachers, etc., have been going there throughout the years. And I am giving a lecture there May 15th. So in London at the College of Psychic Studies, that evening is a lecture. It's an hour and a half. And then May 17th, 2 days later, I'm giving I think it's like a 6 or 7 hour workshop. And my lecture and my workshop are both on the concept of simultaneous time. And here's a fun story about that. So of course, this was booked a long time ago, the date, but I had a little time before deciding what I was going to speak on. And I woke up, I get a lot of my information at night and in dreams. And I woke up, I'm like, okay, that's what I'm going to do my whole thing about, simultaneous time. And so I went into the kitchen, shuffled into the kitchen, turned on the coffee pot, opened up my computer. Do you know what started to play on my computer just out of the blue without me touching it? This is the kind of magic that happens when you open yourself up to magic. It was a 6-minute clip that I happened to have. I totally forgot I had it, from Dolores Cannon, entitled Simultaneous Time.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. Yeah, I love those synchronicities. It just lets you know that there's something going on behind the scenes.
Yes.
Those are both in London, though?
Yeah, it's in London. So the College of Psychic Studies in London. And one of the stories I'm going to tell while I'm there is actually concerns Dolores Cannon, because I actually had a session with her in 2008 when I went up to first meet her and take her class. I had a session. And the most interesting, it was a great session. Everything was great about it. But what was really fascinating was, and that happened on a Sunday, I got up Monday the next morning very early to drive back down to Austin, Texas, where I was living at the time. And I stopped at this diner. I got up like at sunrise, or before sunrise, like 5:30 or whatever. And at, right as the sun was rising, I'm like, I'm going to stop and get some fresh coffee and eat some breakfast. And so I just pull off, and it was right at the junction of two highways, right? I'm coming down south in Arkansas, and I'm getting ready to get on another highway to take me to Austin. And it was right when those two highways, and I pulled off onto this exit, and there was this little brick diner there. And I pulled into the diner, and I sat at the table, and I had eggs and toast and coffee and some hash browns. And well, it was a really interesting, it was sort of surreal. The sun was really bright. Everything seemed to be really normal about what was going on until it was time to pay my bill. And then when I went to pay my bill, I had coffee and orange juice and eggs and toast, and it was 2008, but I still expected the bill to be a little bit more than, like, I think it was like $2.15 or something. And I'm thinking, $2.15? Are you sure? And it was like this push button cash register too. And I'm like, well, that's cool. You got a cool old cash register there. And anyway, what I came to learn was that diner didn't and doesn't exist there, and didn't in 2008. That was a completely different time, and the story is bigger than that, and how I found out all of this. But going through this quantum healing session with Dolores opened up this world. It's like it opens up a portal in you. As a person, and all of a sudden more magic starts happening, and it happened and did happen like immediately for me, just in broad daylight. The next day I end up going to a place that, I don't know, I think it's just kind of running like that. It is somewhere in the 1970s, and then and not there in the mid 2000s.
So do you think things are happening more, or do you think you're just paying attention more?
I think a little of both. I think some people are on a little different trajectories and time tracks because of this, and that doesn't suggest a hierarchy at all. Not at all. It just simply is a choice. It's an absolute choice. As a matter of fact, I've been doing this work for a long, long time, and one of the things that I've learned is some of the judgments or presuppositions that even, clients may bring. Maybe they're awakening clients and they're thinking, I've got this boss and this boss is, low vibrational and he did this to me and he did that to me, and sort of seeing himself or herself as a victim and maybe him as a victimizer or whatever, and I kind of like judging this person. And I am telling you, I have seen more often than not that the higher self of the person who seems to be the person who's not understanding what's going on, their higher self is actually very evolved and has decided to, oh yes, I will now come and play this role to help you in your assistance. So you just can't make these kinds of, judgments in that way. And so I don't think, I think it's everything's a matter of perception. So I think some people are absolutely seeing more things. Some people around us are never going to see any of this. And it kind of depends on what trajectory you are on, what perspective you're holding, and who you decide to hang around with. That will change things. Who you decide your tribe is and who you want to listen to and what kind of energy you want to sit in is going to dictate some of that for you, I believe, or at least that version of you, right? Another version of you may be going to town and going off on another trajectory, kind of just depending. And to me, that's what being multidimensional is all about.
That's amazing, because it's funny that you said that, and it's like the more you look for magic, the more you find it, and it works negative too. I've seen people that seem to look for demons everywhere, and they find them, and it's like it's sort of like whatever you look for, you'll find. Seek and you shall find, and it's like, careful what you're seeking for. If you're seeking truth, that's a good thing, but if you're always looking under every rock for a devil, you're going to find a devil too. So
there are.
And that reminds me, your story actually reminded me of one I read in one of Dolores Cannon's book. I don't know, because I crammed 3 books in a row or whatever when I first found out about her. But she was talking about someone that was on this floor, and they got in the elevator and they came out in a different time. And then they had to actually get back on the elevator and go back up to return to their time. But they ended up in the 40s or something. Yeah. Wild. I can't remember the exact details, but yeah. She's had some pretty wild things like that with time and seeing that it's an illusion and seeing through that veil. That's so crazy.
Yep. I've got a whole collection of those that I'll be talking about when I'm in London. And then later on, actually, we're going to be meeting up with a lot of quantum healers. But who's a quantum healer? So, well, anybody who does this work, you're, in my mind, you're a quantum healer, talking about this work, assisting people in this way. But what I'm mostly talking about formally is our directory, quantumhealingpractitioners.com, and then our associated support forum. So those quantum healers, we've gotten together, and we've been meeting every year. We started when Dolores was alive. We started by having reunions, and then I formally separated from that organization after Dolores' death, but we kept on with the meetings, and we've had meetings in Germany, and we've had meetings in Sarasota, Florida, and we've had meetings in Missouri, and we are going to now have a meeting in a place not far from Athens, Greece this year, where we're going to be doing some mountain trekking. We're going to be doing some meditations with the local people. We're going to be comparing notes. We're going to be doing some group regression stuff. And it's kind of for other practitioners to get together and support each other. And because, we're such a worldwide group, just like you said, you've got listeners right now listening to us in Europe. And we're all over the planet. We're in China, we're in Iceland, we're in South America, and we hope to be able to go around and meet up. And this summer it's in Greece. So, check it out. We actually wrote an article about it. It's on our practitioner blog. We've got a blog at quantumhealingpractitioners.com. You can either look at the tab or look at the blog. And actually there's a calendar events feature there, which is also where you could possibly find more of these kinds of events. Or my page, CandaceCrawGoldman.com.
I actually have all of those links below, as well as your YouTube channel. So,
thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. They can get to the directory down there. And yeah, you get back into the States and you get ready to start the next opening of the class. And I'd love to have you back on, and you can tell us about your trip to Europe and all of that good stuff. So.
Oh, I would love to. I would love to do that. Thank you so much.
Well, that's awesome. It was a pleasure having you on, and I look forward to having you back again.
It was really great. A lot of fun talking with you. I love your energy. And I know that you're getting ready to talk to a really good friend of mine tomorrow, Lauren Hanson, aren't you? More about quantum healing stuff.
Yep, she will be on tomorrow, so I'm excited.
Lauren's one of my best buddies. As a matter of fact, I texted her earlier and she wasn't available. And I said, I'm going to call you after Shane's show. So, Lauren, if you're listening, I'm going to pick up the phone and call you right now, girl.
She might be in the chat. I haven't been able to keep up. I've been so conversation, but shout out to Lauren. Yeah, she'll be on this time tomorrow. So definitely, you guys, if you want to join in the chat, and if you're watching on one of the other streaming services, you can join in with the live chat on the YouTube channel, Unbiased and On the Fence. And lots of love to everyone in the chat. And I want to thank you again for coming on, Candace. And you have a safe trip to Europe, and I hope you have a blast.
Thank you so much. This has been such a pleasure. I thank you. And thanks everyone for watching. Bye.
And bye-bye. Have a good one.